The Greater Centerville Historians organized in the year 2000. The purpose of the organization is to preserve the history of the Township of Centerville, Cleveland and surrounding area. Gerald O'Neill, Charlie Bauer, Richard Wiegand, and myself, Kathleen Sixel, were the founding members. In 1831, the territory south of Green Bay was sold to the U.S. government by the Native Americans who had title to the land. The consideration was the promise of a reservation in another state. The Township of Centerville was established in 1850. The township had a village called Centerville. The reason for the hamlet's original name of Centerville was, in the days of the Indians, there was a trail along Lake Michigan between Manitowoc and Sheboygan. This heavenly spot was exactly at the halfway mark, so the early white man gave it the name Centerville. In 1849, the village of Centerville was surveyed and laid out in lots and blocks. The village of Centerville was renamed Hika when the Postmaster General informed the village leaders that another Centerville was located in the state. When it became time for Centerville to be renamed, a judge in Manitowoc by the name of Albert Schmidt would take kids hiking. The judge said, "You can't call a town hiking, so why not make it Hika?" Thus, the village of Centerville became Hika. In the early years, Centerville had the vision of becoming a lake port. To encourage ships to dock there, 2 piers were built into Lake Michigan. Many German immigrants arrived by schooners, and the village began to grow. The village had a brick factory, stores, schools, a Lutheran and a Catholic church, mills, saloons, blacksmith shop, and a fire department, and a brewery. When the brewery was built, the settlement began to flourish. But when fire destroyed the brewery, the largest industry, there was no longer a need for the harbor facilities. So ended this chapter of the development of Hika. 2 miles west of Hika, another settlement known as St. Wendel began to grow. It had a Catholic church, a general store with a connected dance hall, and a post office was also located in the complex, a funeral parlor, and at one time a motel. With the clearing of the forest, tilling of the land began. This prompted the exporting of lumber and grains. The farmers of Centerville looked forward to the building of a railway since they had a serious problem transporting their products. In 1873, the Milwaukee, Lakeshore, and Western Railroad was built between the settlements of Hika and St. Wendel and was named Centerville Station. In 1880, Centerville Station was renamed Cleveland after President Grover Cleveland. Cleveland, at that point in time, owes its growth to the fact that the Township of Centerville was a rich farming community, and farmers from miles around would bring products to be shipped by rail or ship. The village of Cleveland had several grocery stores, a furniture store, a funeral parlor, several saloons, Lutheran church, hardware stores, several gas stations, newspaper, photographer studio, several car dealerships, cheese factory, several feed mills, livestock yard, and lumber yards. The biggest business was the Cleveland Co-op, which offered many types of services. With the failing of grain crops, the farmers began dairy farming. With the abundance of milk, another industry began, cheese and butter making. Local cheese factories dotted the countryside. One-room schools were usually built near the cheese factories, so children would have a ride to school when farmers brought their milk. In 1958, Hika, St. Wendel, and Cleveland incorporated into the village of Cleveland. In 1968, the Cleveland Elementary School was built. The Township of Centerville has seen many farming changes, but dairy farming is still the primary vocation. Today, Cleveland is known as the seat of Lakeshore Technical College, which offers an educational alternative to 4-year colleges. An ancient proverb states, When an old person dies, a library burns to the ground. These words were the inspiration for organizing the Greater Centerville Historians. We hope to preserve as many memories as possible.
We're going to be kind of undertaking this evening.
My name is Cathy, and this evening we're going to be talking about Center School. Center School was located across the road from Bondi's. It is North Avenue, correct? Where it was on, and it recently was torn down, and I'm going to have to find out what date it was torn down. We were supposed to have a DVD from Carl Klessig, but it never came through. And we have a surprise for you. We're going to have a short clip of when they moved the Mendix dance hall. And then there's going to be some little things on the way that Jerry and Charlie researched. And if you have any comments or information, please, speak up. And my favorite teacher, my only teacher, was Norma Keeney. I had her for 8 years, and I went to school with her son for 12 years. And I want to thank you all for coming. It's November 10th, and it's a very rainy fall evening.
Very good. So, and we have a special guest this evening, too. Would you like to?
Our special guest is Althea Norfolk, because she was a teacher at Center School for how many years, Althea? 17?
No, not that long. No, but I'll tell
for
you
many years.
Okay, very good. Anyway, I'll start to move through here, and I'll start with Mr. He can identify himself.
I'm Charlie Bauer from Newton, and I would say my best and favorite teacher would be my wife, Cheryl.
Okay. Oh, Charlie got out of that one. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Anderson from Cleveland, and I had two grade school teachers, Mrs. Benji for 3 years and Walter Schnell for the rest of the time, 7,
Okay.
no 6, how many? And I can't tell which is the better. I think Mrs. Bendy was the strictest.
Okay, very good, thank you. And who do you have here, please?
Edith, let's see, and I grew up in the Valders area, and my only teacher was Jenny Knudsen, and she is still living. She married Alex Shervitt, and she still is living.
Really? Okay, very good, thank you. And we have another young lady here.
I'm Marie Pippert. I can't remember any of their names. But I remember my first school teacher was Amelia Boney, his mother-in-law, Buddy's mother-in-law. I remember that.
Okay.
But I can't remember others. But I remember a German one when I went to German school, Johanna Brockmann.
Johanna Brockmann.
Yep. I can't remember any of Margaret, somebody was a teacher at Center School, but I can't remember her last name anymore either.
Okay. And we have a young lady here also who's a special guest this evening. Go right ahead, please.
I'm Althea Norfolk. My favorite teacher was Lorena Norfolk. At the time when I had her as a teacher, I never dreamed that I would be married to her brother.
Okay.
So at the time when I taught there, I was Althea Stockmeyer.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Willard Matthias, and I'm probably the only one here that went to Center School.
Okay.
So I have to more or less, first we had, I'm pretty sure, did we have Harold Drum first before you?
I think so.
Harold Drum, and he was a good teacher, and then Althea Norfolk, he was my other teacher.
Well, isn't that a great reunion here of the student and the teacher here? Very nice, very nice.
Hey, I beg your pardon, I went to Center School.
You did too, huh? And you, ma'am?
I'm Alice Matthias. I went to Catholic schools in Manitowoc, so
Okay.
we had got a lot of different nuns, and I don't remember one in particular.
No one in particular.
I think we changed every 2 years.
Okay.
You always had two grades in one room, like.
Sure.
So I
Okay.
don't remember any of the names.
Well, thank you. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Irene Dine. I went to Red Arrow.
Yes?
Oh, and I don't know, I had pretty many good teachers.
A lot of good teachers there. Very good, very good. And here we have another gentleman. He'd like to introduce himself. Go right ahead.
I'm Buddy Yiddish, and I wrote my 8th grade exams at Center School.
Okay. And any particular teacher that was kind
Well,
of,
I had Miss Turkleton, which afterwards became Mrs. Brown, and she became superintendent of.
oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay, very good.
Had her for 6 years.
Okay, great. And who do you have here, please?
I'm Florence Grass, and I went to school at St. Fidelis, and I'll still say my favorite teacher was the first grade teacher, Sister
Okay.
Benedict.
Miss Benedict?
Sister.
Sister Benedict.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Very good. And you, sir?
I'm Walter Kress. My favorite teacher was Irene Scheffler. I think I had her for about 6 years.
Okay, very good. And what school was that at?
Red Arrow.
Okay, very good, thank you. And you, sir?
I'm Fred Jacoby of Manitowoc and went to a country school and had a number of teachers. Irene Scheffler was one of them. Half of the teachers half the time boarded at our house.
Okay.
'Cause we're right there.
Right nearby, huh?
And I had the privilege of my first grade teacher being at my retirement party.
Oh, man,
And she wanted
wonderful.
to make a speech and there wasn't time. But it was pretty nice.
That was pretty nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty nice indeed. And you, sir?
David Cole. I live in Centerville.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if I had a favorite teacher, but one that stands out in my mind was Mrs. Hildebrand, and I went to school in Millersville.
Okay.
And the reason she stands out in my mind is because her husband owned Springtime Bottling Works at the time, if any of the people here remember where that was.
Okay.
So that's the one that stands out in my
Oh,
mind.
very good. Well, my name is Jerry O'Neill. I'm the videographer, and I went to a school called Liberty Bell, District number 5, and I had a teacher by the name of Laverne Hartlop, and I consider her one of the better ones, and enjoyed her very much. Now, I guess we've got something that we're going to be going into for a clip, and maybe Cathy can give us just a rough highlight of what things are there.
About the clip?
Yes,
I think I did already.
you did already.
I did already, but I'll do the rules. How's that?
That's great.
Okay. We have a few rules, you know, it's, please raise your hand when you have information so that Jerry can get over to you and video it. Always state your full name. Try and use full names when you're referring to people, like don't use a nickname because in a couple of years we won't know who that is then. And refrain from visiting when someone is speaking because the background noise picks up on the tapes.
Okay, very good.
Okay?
Very good.
So then we shall start with our clip tonight and go on from there, okay?
Very good, thank you. Please.
Okay, I'm Fred Jacoby, and I'm speaking to the cost of moving the Nennick Pavilion to the Historical Society. The contract with DeVocht was $12,000. They thought that was very reasonable. See, there was a pending contract with ICE, and then ICE apparently ran into some financial problems, and apparently that figure was higher. So they were very pleased with that. And they, by the way, they were also totally and more than pleased with all of DeVocht's work, because ICE had moved all of their other buildings to this point. The real unexpected cost though comes from the power companies. They had to deal with 2 different power companies on that stretch, and the combined cost of taking care of the wires was $9,500.
Whoa.
Then, of course, the cost of the slab turned out to be $5,800, but that was another, not part of the moving really. So the total cost of the building to get it on site would be $27,300, and then I'm sure there's other things to do.
Yes, very good. Thank you. Please, go right ahead.
I'm Edith Filtzy, and there was a wrong information on the tape of the date of the house barn. That started in 1848, I think it was, 1848 or 49. He said he couldn't see the sign
Okay,
because some of it was good off. But see, on the video it said 1819 or something like that.
okay. And again, that was the day it was built, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, very good, thank you. I got this little perky lady here, and she'd like to say a few words. Go right ahead, please.
I'm Marie Pippen. I was wondering, did they donate that, or did they have to pay any money for that, for the pavilion? Was it donated, free of charge? I guess he knows.
He knows? Okay, if I can give us information on that question.
Okay, I'm Fred Jacoby. In talking to Armand Keeter and Chuck Backus, they've been working on this. Armand has been going out there for a couple of years with the previous director of the Historical Society, Bob Fay. I don't know if any of you knew him. And, well, then he left for a different job. And so then it was finally finalized as Leroy described on the video, pretty much that way. And it was donated. But they had to be responsible for it. Leroy was thinking apparently at one point about recovering some cost of reestablishing the site,
Okay.
and since they were begging for funds just for the project, they weren't able to do that, and that was okay with Leroy apparently, finally.
Okay.
Now, that's the only cost that there would have possibly been, but
Sure.
this building, I wondered what if you could build a building like that for $26,000. But it isn't the same building. I mean,
That's
here
right.
it's historical and it's special, but it seems it added up to a lot of money.
Yeah. But it's a special building, like
That's
you
it.
said. Very unique, very unique.
That's fine.
On the floor, go right ahead.
I'm Cathy Sixel, and I would like to know if any of the people that are here tonight went to the picnics and danced in the hall, Mendix Hall.
Okay, very
Is
good.
that what it was referred to as, Mendix Hall, or? Okay.
Thank you. Pretty lady here who was dressed very stylish, and she'd like to say a few words. Go right ahead.
I'm Althea Norfolk. I was one of the fortunate ones who would go to this little dance hall, and I think I could have met my husband there.
Oh, really?
It's very possible.
Very good, very good.
And it was one of those places that we enjoyed going to.
Wonderful. Did you attend quite a few times, or?
Oh, I'm sure we did. One
Okay.
forgets some of that, but
Yeah.
all I can recall is a lot of good memories.
Wonderful. Very good. Did you, by any chance, remember any of the bands or orchestras that might have played there?
I think Romy Gaz could have been there.
Okay. Very good.
Yes, and of course that was always an attraction.
I guess.
If you knew he was going to be somewhere there or a tourist inn,
Yes. Okay, very good.
it would be a good place
Very good.
to meet.
Thank you.
And later on,
Yes.
we spoke about the admission fee. I can recall when ladies could get in for 10 cents.
Okay.
Yes.
Very
That was-
good.
That was good.
Yes.
And it was nothing unusual for a group of girls to go together.
Okay.
And the girls would dance, and
Sure.
it was fun.
Good. Thank you. I'd like to indicate that she also attended that area. Go right ahead, please.
Well, I think all of Cleveland danced in there, in the hall,
Okay.
when they had the picnics.
Okay.
That was real popular.
Good. Good. Was there any advertising that this was going to happen at all in papers, or did they have posters out? Do you remember
I think
anything?
they had posters out,
Okay.
but I don't know if there are any, like up at Settlers, they have them.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
From years ago.
Can add a little information yet on the Octagon Building? Go right ahead.
My name is Edith Lutzy, and I belong to Centerville Settlement, and we've approached Teresa many times that we wanted to use this building for something, and she just said they used it for storage, and she just didn't want to bother with anything.
Okay. Okay. So is that her son that was talking on the tape?
Leroy, that was her boyfriend.
Oh, that was her boyfriend.
Leroy Erdl. That was Leroy Erdl. No.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. Please.
My name is Cathy Sixel, and any more input on the Little Green Dance Hall?
I'm Fred Jacoby, and talking about the pavilion. Chuck Backus said they noticed when they tore off the bandstand before the moving, getting ready for the moving, that there was some cream or ivory-colored paint there and showing. And so then he said, do you know if it was painted a different color? And I asked my mother-in-law, Lavina Dersch, and her sister, Bernice Schneider. They were both Sigilco girls. They said the best recollection they had that it wasn't painted for many years until after it was not being used for the old picnics anymore.
Okay.
And I just took a board that was laying there and took a pocket knife and scraped through a couple times, and I didn't see any other paint. So my best guess is that building was painted long after it was being used as a dance hall, and that would, because the wood is rough too underneath the green paint. It isn't as though it was always covered.
Okay.
But that's just theory.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. We've got a lady who would like to indicate our next endeavor here.
I'm Cathy Sixel, and I think we've completed all discussion on the Mendix Hall, and we'll start on Center School.
Okay.
I have a picture of Center School. That was the postcard that I sent out. And I have a few facts about Center School. It was known as Nenning School until 1918 because the Nenning family lived around there. In 1856, the first school was a log building. In 1887, the second school was built. In 1901, an additional 16 feet was added to the length of the school. It closed in 1968 and was used as a home. And a couple of years ago, well, today, the land is still owned by the Saxon Farms, but at that time, it was an apartment building, or, no, it was an apartment, yeah, and it was owned by the Saxon Farms, and that would be the Klesick family.
Okay, thank you.
And this came from there's a book published, and if you can find it at the Heritage Center, and it's on all the schools of Manitowoc County, and that's where I got this information from. And I also have a wonderful picture here, and this is of Center School, 1938, and Althea Norfolk was the teacher. And she had a student by the name of Willard Matthias, so we'll let Althea take this over, all right?
Okay, very good, thank you.
1938.
Here is the list, Jerry, of the students.
Oh, you do have that?
Yeah, well, I have it right here.
Okay,
Althea
I'll,
had identified them all. Would you like to read it? Or is that too hard for you?
Yeah, see that.
You can, yeah, you'll.
Okay, now the first row would be Eugene Deasing, Robert Herman, Walter Ertl, Otto Ertl, and Dorothy Schmidt, right?
What is the first row?
That would be
The bottom
over here.
Over on the far side?
Pardon me.
Sure.
would be on the south side,
Be over here.
south
Yeah.
side of the
They're
building.
the older ones.
Yes.
Okay,
And Evelyn Matthias, she was in there, okay. The second row
yes.
would be Dorothy,
Gildner.
Dorothy Giltner, yeah. And Helen Herman, Deasing, Burnett Deasing, and Yeager, Audrey Yeager. That would be the, and Lorraine Herman, Willard Matthias, and Geraldine Deasing. No, where's, got that one?
Okay.
And the third row would be Dorothy Matthias, Helen Lutzy, Joanne Culp, John Deasing, Leroy Ertl, Joanne Williams, Merlin Hanson, and Mary Amstead. That would be,
Okay.
okay. This would be the row here now.
Okay,
Would be Glenn Witt, Vernon Deasing, Beverly Culp, Bobby Hanson, Elfred Yeager, and Phyllis Herman. They were the first graders.
okay, very good. And Althea, now you handled the school all by yourself there?
Oh, yes, in those days, you were the only one in charge. You
Okay.
had the 8 grades, but it sounds so overwhelming now. Actually, it wasn't.
Okay,
It wasn't it was something of choice.
all
And
right,
I enjoyed that. Well, let's go to the outside of the building.
Very good.
First, the grounds had the familiar swings.
yes,
And of course, the children used those. There was an area where they could play ball.
okay,
And and of course, we had the one building which incorporated both the men's, boys, and the girls' toilet.
okay,
And with that was the incorporated into that building the area where we kept wood, and we
Okay.
also kept coal.
okay,
We also had one of these old-fashioned pumps on the grounds,
okay,
and that was our source of water,
okay,
the only source of water that we had. As we would approach the building, the front of it was enclosed with an opening to the south.
okay,
You would enter, actually, the door was an east door. Straight ahead of that was the familiar rope attached to the bell.
okay,
To the right and to the left, you had the cloakrooms.
all right,
Each of the cloakrooms had shelving for the lunch boxes, and it also had the hooks for the for the clothes,
Yeah.
and each of those rooms had a window facing the east.
Okay.
You could get into the classroom from each of those rooms, so you actually had 2 entries into the classroom itself.
Okay.
You look into the classroom, you immediately see the big furnace, actually. It wasn't a pot-bellied stove, but it was actually a furnace.
Okay.
To your right. That would have been in the northeast corner.
All right.
Then, looking across to the southeast section, you had our library, which was really quite modern for the time.
Okay.
In fact, one of the years when we introduced something in our language program, our center school had such a large library that the children and I prepared a bibliography which we used throughout the county for references for the work that we were going to be doing in our classes. So I felt rather fortunate.
Yeah.
Of course, there were windows on the north side and windows on the south side.
All
Today
right.
we would object to that because you had the cross lighting. But we took care of that. We had the window shades, and they were drawn
Okay.
up or down depending upon the time of the day and also the condition of the weather at the time.
All right.
Each of the rooms had the familiar, or this main room, had the familiar Washington and Lincoln portraits.
Okay.
I think you found that everywhere.
All
Of course,
right.
we also had the globe,
Okay.
which we could lower. You had the slate blackboards. To the north and to the south, we had 2 windows, and between those windows we had good slate board, and across the west end also we had slate boards. They were
Okay.
very good.
All right.
Oh, the children, of course, sat in individual seats.
Okay.
Those were fastened to slats, and there usually would be 2 or possibly 3 seats attached to a slat. Now, you could tip those, and when we did our daily chores, and all the children would help. It was
Okay.
great. The larger and stronger boys would lift that, and the rest of the children would either sweep a broom under that or whatever, and then you'd set it back. We had to be careful because there were inkwells.
Oh, yes.
And we didn't want any of that ink to, and of course, sometimes if the books weren't packed carefully, some of those books would land on the floor. Well, in a scurry, everybody would just get everything straightened out again.
Okay.
The desk that I had was against the west wall, and it was an unusual desk. Today we think of a desk as being flat.
Yeah.
Well, this one had a portion in the center that you lifted, and you could
Okay.
keep whatever you needed to in that, so it wouldn't be out. And I do recall that we had some Halloween pumpkins, and they were must have had some wax in it because Willard probably doesn't recall this, but at one time when I opened that little door, we had a family of mice in it. And of course, it didn't take too long, and the boys knew just what to do with those mice. And that was the end of the mice family. But it was interesting. We had quite a few sets of shelving for our books.
Okay.
At first, we didn't have the piano. That came a little later.
Okay.
But we did have a radio because we listened to Professor Gordon's music.
Oh, really?
And that was a weekly event, and they knew all of the songs. And then at the time of the get-together at the county graduation or whatever,
Yes.
those songs were usually incorporated into the programs.
Okay.
And the children were proud of that.
All right.
I can still picture, we had electric lights,
Okay.
But not only did we have these lights from the ceiling, but we always had these coils of fly paper.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
The ones you stick to the ceiling, is that?
Oh, well, yes. And of course, there was a need for that.
Yes.
We didn't have some of the things that we have in our schools today, but I think we were proud of what we had.
Okay. I have a question for you. As far as the particular classes, did you move to a different area of the school building to conduct your class, or did you do it right as they sat in their seats?
No, our classes were small enough. So at the west end of each of the rows, we had just the seats,
Okay.
and the children could sit there.
All right.
And some things you would conduct directly from their seats.
Mm-hmm.
We, and I was so proud of this too, we introduced a grouping of language arts in which they all stayed at their desks, and we had all 8 grades participate in that.
Oh.
And then at the end of the period, there was this composition period, and I would tell the children in the upper grades, I said, now, we know how to do this, we know how to do that, we know how to do the other thing. I would like to see in your composition, based on what we had talked about today, it might have been a mammal, might have been something else of interest. I said, I would like to see words in a series. You know how to do that. You separate that with commas. I'd like to see some quotation of some kind of what you're going to be telling us someone else spoke about. I'd like to see a composition with some good descriptive words. And then I would go to the chalkboard and I say, what can you think of that would describe, let's say the elephant that we spoke about today. And then they would give me a few words. I said, those are good words. Maybe you can use those in your story.
Okay, very good.
And in that way, I would introduce them into composition work.
Sure.
And the first grade could do a little something. Maybe they could just write one sentence. And whatever word they needed, I said, do the best you can in spelling, and I'll understand what you're talking about.
Okay.
And in that way, they didn't fear making a mistake, which was good.
Mm-hmm.
We also introduced a math period in which we all worked at math at the same time.
Okay.
And I usually would list things on the chalkboard. This is what I expect the 7th and 8th grade children to be able to do. This is what I expect the 5th and 6th grade children to be able to do. And then, of course, if the first grade was already at something, we would have that. Of course, the 7th and 8th grade children prepare the entire thing.
Okay, very good.
And it was a learning experience, a good review for the upper grade children. Maybe we had just introduced additional fractions. Well, that was probably done in the 5th or 6th grade. 7th and 8th grade thought, this is a good review for us. And so it wasn't so difficult to have all the grades at one time.
Right.
It was great.
Now, as far as other duties other than teaching, you mentioned a big furnace, wood and coal and so forth. Your responsibility or what?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
But the children always helped. We dusted.
Okay.
Yes, and and there were always art pictures on the walls.
Okay.
And I always liked to display what the children had done.
Okay.
And if they had a good paper in math, or if they had an especially good penmanship paper, I said, okay, I'd like everybody to see this.
Yes. Okay.
So they were proud of that. So was I.
Very good.
What
Now,
years did you teach there?
Pardon?
What years did you teach there?
Well, 1940 was my last year. We were married in 1940. So I think I started there in 1937. It's possible, I'm not certain.
okay.
Those years went by so fast.
Okay.
And when I think back, I don't think numbers as much as enjoyment.
Very good, very good.
And that was great.
Now, as far as I know, I went to grade school too, a one-room school.
Oh,
The Christmas program, was that something that you also put together?
Oh, yes, and that was strange. Usually at the time of the convention in the fall of the year, you would gather materials. You would get new books that you could select your pieces or dialogues or whatever
Okay.
from. Yes, and every child took part.
Okay.
It wasn't that only some. Every child was able to participate in that.
Okay.
And we strung our curtains. I had made those. And then when we neared the Christmas, then we would take 1/4 of the day
Okay.
for practice.
Yes.
And it wouldn't be the same quarter of the day so that we wouldn't miss out on,
Right.
on the different classes.
Okay.
And I remember E.S. Miller coming. E.S. Miller was our superintendent. Joe Rappa was the supervising teacher. And I can still see E.S. Miller coming to the, we did have the piano because I can see him now coming to the little container that I had with artificial tulips, and he had put his fingers into it to see whether they were real. And I laughed. I said, no, they're not real.
Althea, tell us a little about your background when you couldn't teach for a couple of years and
Oh.
where you graduated from.
Well, I graduated from the county normal in 1930.
And that was in Manitowoc?
I graduated from Sheboygan High School in 1931.
Okay, very good point.
And my hopes were to become a nurse.
Okay.
But the tuition would have been $23 a month.
Okay.
My parents weren't parents of means. And I thought, well, I just cannot do that.
Okay.
I can't do that. And I always loved children. And my sister had gone to the county normal in Sheboygan Falls, and that was a one-year course.
Okay.
So I decided I'm going to try to go to the county normal, which is what I did. And then graduated from that, the county normal in 1932.
Okay.
These were Depression years.
Yes.
And there just wasn't a school available. There wasn't. And so I did housework for a year, and, it was worthwhile, because then I started teaching at Point River.
Point River.
Point River, that was also in the town of Centerville.
Could you give us kind of a location of that particular?
Well, it's a dwelling now. It's close to where Bernard Dershes lived. It was close to the school that Frederick Jacoby had gone to.
Okay.
This was Point River. Okay.
All right.
It was a large building, and I also had the 8th grades there.
Okay.
And it was quite an experience because having graduated from Sheboygan Falls, the curriculum was just a little different. At least the textbooks were a little different.
Okay.
So my first job was to get the manuals and get ahead of that, and that's how I spent that summer.
Okay.
Just acquainting myself with the new manuals. And there was one manual that all of us treasured, and I wish I had a copy of that. And that was the State of Wisconsin Course of Study.
Okay.
And you based your teaching on that. It listed each of the grades and what you are to cover in math. For each of the grades, what you're to cover in each of the different subject areas.
Mm-hmm.
And it has the poems and pictures areas.
Okay.
You covered that. And because of that, the 8th grade children could take a test on what had been taught.
Okay.
And I thought, I wish today they had a course of study like that. It would be quite basic.
Mm-hmm.
You could use the text that you wish, but you cover those principles.
Okay, I've got another question in regard when I was a small boy at kindergarten and maybe first grade. I believe it was kindergarten. There was a book and it was pertaining to a family, and it was Dick and Jane and Sally and Puff and Spot.
Oh,
Was
yes.
that the same one?
Yes, well, Dick and Jane came a little later.
Okay,
And I started out with Peter and Peggy.
okay.
Yes. Peter and Peggy were the first family.
That was the first
Oh,
family?
yes. Uh-huh.
Okay,
And, well, Dick and Jane came later.
okay. You did have to switch over to Dick and Jane in your career?
Oh, yes, it wasn't a problem.
Okay.
And Dick
Okay,
and Jane had Spot.
yes,
I don't recall what Peter and Peggy had.
okay.
But Peter and Peggy were there before Dick and Jane were
I'll be
there.
doggone.
Althea, wasn't there a period in your life where you couldn't teach because ladies couldn't teach because there weren't?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you, Cathy.
After, in 1940, Herbert Lorfeld and I were married.
Yes,
And at that time, it was the custom that if your husband had a job, that it was expected that you wouldn't continue to teach.
oh, really?
Yes. Although I enjoyed it, we decided, well, that's the way it is, that's the way we'll do.
Okay.
So then I didn't teach until, see, those were Depression years, until we got into the war years.
Okay,
Then they needed teachers. And I was very, very happy in my home at that time. And so the people from the district I had started in Point River came to me and said, Althea, will you teach for us? I said, well, I haven't been in the field for a long time. I was a one-year graduate.
mm-hmm,
And I knew that if I would continue teaching, I would have to earn some credits. So I decided, well, what shall we do? Herb said, it's for you to make up your mind on this. I said, I need to find out what needs to be done because I'm not going to teach unless I'm a qualified teacher.
sure.
So I went to Manitowoc, the county superintendent's office, and I said, what do I do to get back into the teaching? Well, he said, you need to earn 6 credits. How can I do that? Well, you could come to the county normal, but that would have to be done during the school year. And here, it was beginning of summer, and I was to start in the fall of the year, so there wasn't a possibility of that. I said, what's the alternative? So they said, you could take 2 courses, 2 3-credit courses by correspondence. Conservation of natural resources, and then there was an economics course of some kind. So I was given the papers. I wrote to Madison. They sent me the outline of what I would be able to do, and they sent me the first set of lessons, and undoubtedly the books that I needed, and then everything had to be written. So I spent quite a bit of time. I hadn't been in a classroom for a while, and I needed to do a lot of reading, and I was tired. I had 2 children,
Sure.
and a house to take care of, a
Right.
big garden, and many is the time I stood and read the assignments, and then I wrote up everything. But when every one of the returns came back and I had an A, I ran out of the house and over to Grandma Lorfeld's 2 houses over, and I said, Grandma, I did it. And of course, that was a lot of encouragement.
There you go.
And so then I was able to teach in the fall of the year.
Wonderful.
And I loved it.
Attributed
I
to
knew
you.
it. And then I made up my mind, as long as I'm going to be teaching, I'm going to continue to go to school.
Okay,
And I did.
good.
Until finally I had my master's.
Wonderful.
And before that, I had gotten a reading specialist or a specialist in the teaching of reading, because reading to me was always so vital.
Sure.
And then my master's after that.
Wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
those were wonderful years.
Now, when did you stop teaching as perhaps retiring, or what took
After
place?
retiring. I can't give you those years.
Okay.
I can't give you those years. When I stopped teaching, I should be able to remember. I stopped teaching when I had the first grade in the new building at Kiel.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Then I combined, I had the first grade there, one of the first grade rooms, and I combined teaching of reading. I was a reading specialist at that time in the Mimi School.
Okay.
So I spent a part of the time of the day there.
Okay.
And I don't remember if that was once a week. Possibly. I'm not certain on that.
So you taught special students for reading, or?
Yes, both accelerated and those who needed a little help.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
That was very interesting too.
Right.
I enjoyed that.
Right.
Because loving to read was something that I tried to instill in the students.
Okay.
And I think I did.
You did.
Because they often would, especially the little boys would come, and I can recall that at the Mimi School, and they would say, Mrs. Norfolk, I love to read.
Isn't that nice? Isn't that great?
I said, that's good. And the biggest thrill would be this. We would have a reading period where everyone would do his own, and then all of a sudden you would see one youngster chuckling. I thought, oh, he's comprehending. How wonderful.
Yeah. Very good.
So they were great years.
Very good.
But there's a time to stop.
Yes.
And the time came when my husband came down with cancer.
Okay.
And that was a good time to stop.
Very good.
So I was able to spend a few years.
Sure.
But they were great years.
Isn't that great when you have a career that you enjoy?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it from day one.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For the question.
I'm Edith Lutzy, and I was just going to ask Althea who started the fires in the morning. I know that at our school we had to always start the fires in the morning too.
Okay. Althea is going to answer that question.
It was Althea, but I had good help. Willard was one of my students. I never had to ask, please do this.
Okay.
They were always 2 steps ahead of me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, then we'll, maybe Mr. Matthias would like to just do a little recall on his own here.
Well, I think she covered everything that was supposed to be said.
Okay.
That's,
Could you give us her name before you start, sir?
I'm Lord Matthias, and I attended that school.
Okay. And what years did you attend, please?
Oh, God, that's a goddamn long ago. But anyway, when we, like you said, we had these plays.
Yes.
Christmas time.
Right.
And you had to rehearse your piece that you didn't. Then you'd get up there in front of all them people and you'd forget what you were supposed to say. But at that time, I was a fairly good singer, I should say, because I used to sing with the girls and the boys, you know, and we'd have to get up there and sing the song. And,
sure.
But now I can't sing anymore.
Now, what years did you attend, if I can ask that?
Oh, God, let's see.
When you're 6, like?
I know when I walked to school in 1936, you could touch the wires.
Oh, yes, the big storms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you went from first grade on, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have kindergarten when you went to school.
Okay.
But anyway, like I said, I know I was in 36, so I was one.
Okay.
And when I'd be, and I remember sitting by the windows over there, and the milk truck would go through, and I'd always have to look up at what time, if he's on time or not. It was one of our dairy trucks, so.
Okay.
So that must have been about 41.
All right. Althea says she's got
I'm
something.
just recalling something.
Sure.
These, of course, were war years.
Yes.
And I remember the day when Joni Culp came in, and she was crying because Harold had left.
Okay.
He was in the service.
Okay.
Yes. And we just, Joni cried that day.
And that was her brother, or?
It was her brother,
Oh,
yes.
really?
And no one said anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, another wonderful thing, you know, when you have the one room, you have families. We had the Deasing family. There was Eugene and Geraldine and Bernice and Vernon and John,
Okay.
all one family. There
Yes.
was the Herman family.
Okay.
There was Robert and Helen and Phyllis and
Lorraine.
and Lorraine, yes. And there were the Matthiases.
Okay.
And all of those families, and it was great.
Wonderful.
It was
Yeah.
great.
How many children were in your class?
Oh, there were usually around 30 children.
Okay.
Around 30. You had homework.
Yes.
I had my grocery box.
Okay.
That went home with me every evening.
Every night. Now, to get to the school, did you drive a vehicle to school?
I didn't have a vehicle.
Okay.
I walked. I boarded with the Drums, but I also boarded with the Josephine Schulte. And I would get to either the Drums or the Josephine Schulte by bus,
Okay.
and then also return home by bus.
From
That
where?
was in Newton,
Oh,
on the farm.
okay.
My dad and mom.
But did you have to walk to Newton? To Gerald Drum? Or where did you take the bus from?
Right, Gretz's, the bus stopped at Gretz's. And see, that's where the
Oh.
Drums lived, and that's where the Josephine Schulte lived.
So then you walked from there, or what?
You mean to get to school?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
yes. That was fine.
No, nobody ever mentioned that there was a bus stop by Gretz in all these meetings.
Oh, yes, there was a bus stop there,
Okay. All right.
But a Greyhound bus, right?
undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it was called Greyhound at that
Green
time.
Bay Stage,
Green Bay Stage.
Oh, whatever,
Before.
okay.
and they would stop by any farm if they wanted. Somebody wanted to go to Sheboygan High School.
Oh, really?
Or
And the
down the highway.
transportation system was better in those years than it was today. The bus today, right?
That's right.
Okay.
I think we should say, the people on the east side of the railroad track went down to Red Arrow, and the people on the west side of the track went to Center, so that Cleveland actually was divided.
Okay.
Correct.
He has brought up a little more information in regard to the school areas here. Go right ahead, please.
And Dorothy Anderson, and I went to the Red Arrow School down in Hika, and anybody on the east side of the railroad track came down to east there, and the people on the west side of the track went west to the center school.
Okay.
So the village of Cleveland and St. Wendel went to the center until they built their own.
They still were the same one.
Oh, yeah, divided too. And so the people in Cleveland the kids went two different directions.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Here, she'll identify herself, and she's got some more information. Go right ahead, please.
This is Althea Norfolk again. It was interesting because there used to be a little bit of competition between Center School and the Red Arrow School.
Oh, really?
When we had the town contests, we would be interested in finding out who got the most awards in the second grade addition combinations, or who got the most in one of the other contests. So
Okay.
it was a good rivalry.
Wonderful.
We
Wonderful.
enjoyed it.
Good.
And they were held at Wimmer's Hall.
Oh, yes, they were held at Wendel.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Okay. You remember that very well there?
They were
Okay.
held- They had spelling
Yes?
and arithmetic and music
Yes.
Oh, really?
Okay.
at Wimmer's Hall.
Just the two schools?
No,
All I think 5 or 6, how many districts were there?
Six.
6, yeah.
Okay.
All of them together.
What was
one
your
of the
district?
things-
Okay, go
One
right
of the
ahead.
things that we enjoyed so much was our music memory.
Yes.
I don't know if you recall, and
Yeah.
on occasion, I would think of some of the songs that we had. See, they would play these on a record, and you would have to identify it, and they would put the needle down wherever they pleased.
Okay.
And you had to be able to give the title and spell it correctly. And I remember, I dreamt I dwelt in marble halls from the Bohemian Girl by Balfe. You had to write all of that. And there were stars and stripes forever. There was,
Oh, my goodness.
any number of them. But those were classics, and I wish that the children today
Yeah.
would get some of those classics that we enjoyed.
Wonderful.
Oh, it was great.
Now, I've got a question in regard to nowadays teachers are more specialized in the certain grade segment. And you were taking it on from the youngsters, so it takes different psychology to teach from the young all the way to the 8th grade. That had to be a tough thing to handle.
Well, I grew up in at White Trail School. My first 2 years could have been in a one-room school. And then White Trail became a state-graded school.
Okay.
So we had the 2 rooms. So that was a part of my upbringing, too.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Now, when you were going to high school yourself, you said you had another career that you were looking at, and then you changed your mind. Now,
Yes, it was due to economics
okay,
and Depression time.
okay.
I remember an expression, we were financially embarrassed. And so we made the best of it.
Made the best of it.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. Maria's got something that she did in school that is sort of overlooked at this day and age. Go right ahead, Marie.
I think they called it penmanship, and you had to do it all over the whole paper, and they had to all be the same height.
Yes.
All those round circles.
Yes, yes.
But I remember the music part too, with like a Victrola, and you had to
Okay,
write down
you had a
all it was.
Victrola. Okay, who would like to take that? Was that a cranking type thing, or what was that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it must have been. Yeah.
Or was it such a thing with such a megaphone?
No, no, no. It was small.
Like this?
Yeah, it must have been a crank.
Okay, so it was a crank-up record player.
I remember Bernice Straussen was a teacher at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, I've got another question for Althea. You mentioned that you had a piano in the school. Now, were you musically capable of handling that too?
Let's say that I was limited.
Okay.
Think, going back to the 2nd grade arithmetic tests, they had the combinations.
Okay.
And the 45 combinations.
The 40.
And they were experts at that. They knew those combinations, and they had to write their little sums as quickly as can be. And of course, the one that had completed it first and had them all right,
Yes.
won
Okay.
the award.
Very good. Very good.
So
Could you explain that a little more deeply? I
What
don't.
is a combination?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is
all
something
right.
new for me.
All the combinations. Okay. Start with what? 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 1 and 5, 1 and 6, 1 and 7, 1 and 8.
Okay.
Okay. 1 and 9.
Yes.
2, 2 and 1, 2 and 2, 2 and 3, 2 and 4, 2 and 5, and all the way through, all the way up to 9.
Okay.
And you have that on a sheet of paper,
All right.
mixed up.
Okay.
And they would have to write their little sums.
Okay.
Yes.
And that was their ritual there to get that correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Very good.
And those who didn't take part in the contest knew their combinations too.
Okay. Very good.
So that
Good.
that was good. I
Good.
imagine
Very
some
good.
of you recall that.
I sort of remember.
Yes.
Something like that, but.
Okay.
Do you remember we used to get gold stars for stuff too?
Oh, yes. There were gold stars. We didn't have the smiley faces at that time. We had the gold stars.
Gold stars.
Yes.
Very good.
Oh, and on the blackboards, or actually they were slate boards, always had a border, or you would write the heading, reading 1, or reading 2, or science 1, or whatever it was. That would always be in colored chalk.
Okay.
It was pretty, and the
All
rest
right.
of it would be in the white.
In white, okay.
White chalk,
All
yes.
right.
And then we had some children who would clap the erasers.
Okay.
And they
Sure.
they liked that job.
Okay.
Yes. Clapping the erasers. And,
I have a question for,
Okay, go right ahead.
I'm Alice Mathias, I have a question for Althea. Did she ever have to train left-handers to be right-handers?
And a question brought to this lady here, and she'll identify herself. Go right ahead.
I'm Althea Norfolk. No, a left-hand person is supposed to be a left-hand person in writing and everything.
Okay.
It should be legible,
Yes.
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 but don't try to change them.
Don't try to change them.
Very good, very good.
There's
Thank
no
you.
need for it.
No need. He'll identify himself. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, David Cole. No, I was born and raised right-handed.
Okay. Very good. Nobody tried to change your ways. Okay, okay.
No story here.
No story behind that. Anybody here?
I'm Walter Kress, and I'm left-handed, and he made me change to right. I write right-handed now and do everything else left-handed.
Really? Was that a tough transition for you?
It was tough.
I bet it was. Okay, very good.
First grade, he made me switch.
Very good. Okay, thank you. And
I'm Florence Chris. I'm
Yes.
right-handed, but I had a sister that was left-handed, and there was no way in heck they were going to change her. She's as left-handed as anybody can be.
very good, very good. And you, sir?
Melvin Yeaney, and I'm right-handed, but I broke my middle finger once, and the doctor wrapped the whole hand in the fist like over a roll of gauze. And at that time, I taught myself to sign my name with the left.
The left hand. Very good, very good. And you, ma'am?
I'm Irene Dine, and I'm left-handed, and they changed me to right-handed.
They did do that?
Yes, I
Okay.
write right-handed now.
And what school is that at?
Red Arrow.
Red
But I
Arrow.
can also write left-handed.
You can do both now? Oh, great, great. And you, ma'am?
I'm Alice Mathias. I was born a left-hander. My mother was left-handed. We have one son and he's left-handed. One of his sons are left-handed. So I think they got my gene from being left-handed. And I'm totally lost with my right hand.
Very good.
Except cutting with the scissors.
That-
I could never, ever cut with the left hand.
Isn't that
That's the
something? How
only
that
thing
works?
that but I guess left-handed, now they have left-handed scissors,
Yeah.
but I never,
Yeah,
ever
yeah, you're right.
learned how to cut with a right-handed,
Yes. You're
left-handed scissors.
right ahead, sir.
I'm learning size, I can use either hand.
No problem. You really can write with either hand.
No,
No.
you can write with
I
you.
could, sure.
Okay.
I need to.
Althea, what, were you a right-hander or left-hander?
I was born a right-hander, still am a right-hander.
Okay, very good. Marie,
Right hand.
right hand, huh?
I'm Cathy, right hand.
Okay.
Edith, let's see, right-handed.
Uh-huh.
Dorothy Anderson, right-hand.
Everybody's normal here.
Yeah.
Me too, right-handed. Any doubt.
Videographer is left-handed. Yes. Okay, we've got a question here.
I have a picture here, and I got this picture from Marie Pippard. And this is of Red Arrow School, and Marie is on. Well, Center School, and Marie is on here, but we don't know which one, right?
Okay,
I know.
Oh, you know,
You
okay.
know.
Marie can point out which one she is then.
okay,
Margaret Taple.
okay,
Well, that was before they were married. Arlene Reineman,
all right.
Clara Nennig, Anna Klesick, me, Marie Pippert,
Okay,
Ralph Sedlock, Gordon Pippert, Rob Pippert, Elroy Matthias is on here, Roland Fiddler.
okay,
These are two Cooper boys. And Earl Stolenberg, Laverne Edler, Verna Vogel,
okay.
Evelyn Bourne, and Viola Yeager. Some of these I couldn't remember, and I did ask the Yeager girls, but they didn't know who they were either, the
Okay.
younger
Which
ones.
one are you, Marie?
Would you point out, yes?
That
Is pointing out herself there?
The good-looking
That
one.
good-looking one. Thank you, Marie. Here who has got some more information, and he'll identify himself. Go right ahead.
I'm Fred Jacoby, and I've been asked to read from the Centerville and Cleveland, is that a centennial or something? Some anniversary. And they got all the schools' histories here, and we're particularly interested in Center School's history this
Okay.
evening. And also I'll read. Center School in all early records was designated as School District Number 4. To the people in the district, however, it was known as the Nennick School because of the Nennick families who have lived and still living across the road. In 1918, the school was given the name Center School because it was situated in Highway 141, about halfway between Manitowoc and Sheboygan. And then it goes on to describe its legal location. The district was 4 miles long and 1.5 miles wide. On May 12, 1856, the town superintendent of schools of the town of Centerville directed George Leonard, a resident of the district, to notify every qualified voter in the proposed Centerville District Number 4 to attend the first school meeting at the home of F. Miller on May 23, 1856, at which time officers were elected. In September of 1856, the annual school meeting was held, and plans were made to select a school site and determine the type of building to erect. A quarter acre of land at the southeast corner of Section 20 was purchased from Joseph Leonard. In 1901, another 1/2 acre was purchased from George Leonard. On this site, a log building 20 by 25 feet was erected. People of the district furnished the logs and helped build the school. Those who furnished material and helped build received $1 per day. Those who furnished only labor were paid 6 shillings per day. The crude log building was clapboarded for extra warmth, and the interior was furnished with long benches, a small blackboard, and maps. Pauline Rosebergen, the first teacher, taught from December 1856 to March 1857 for $12 per month. In 1857, 4 months of school were to be held. However, if there was money left in the treasury, school would be held longer. Records reveal that most of the district people were German immigrants. It was definitely stipulated at each annual school meeting that a teacher who could speak German be hired. On March 12, 1887, a special meeting was held to vote on the question of a new school. The vote was 26-2 in favor of a new school. The vote was 19-10 in favor of a brick building over a frame one. The new structure was to be 36 by 24 by 12. The building committee consisted of John Dersch, Carl Tapel, and Chris Wetzel. It was a well-planned structure having a double hardwood floor and 8 windows. It was built on the same site as the first building and was part of the building which still stands. The contractor was paid $700 to construct the building. In 1901, the voters decided to lengthen the old brick schoolhouses by adding 16 feet to the west at a cost of $300. 7 years later, at a special meeting, it was decided to install a ventilating system. Playground equipment was purchased. In the following years, a new hardwood floor was laid, adjustable seats purchased, additional blackboards, electric lights, and a new furnace installed, and modern teaching aids purchased. During 1946, a modern, fully equipped kitchen to make possible the serving of a complete hot noon lunch was added to the classroom. In 1856 to 1865, the enrollment was about 25. This increased from year to year as more children took advantage of the education offered to them. The largest enrollment was in 1917 with 63 pupils. At that time, a special meeting was held to discuss ways and means of coping with the over-enrollment situation. A suggestion to add a second room and making the building a graded school was voted down. It was decided instead to enroll no child below 6 years of age. This plan brought the attendance below 60. By 1948, the enrollment was down to 24, since many district children attended St. Wendel parochial school. The first census record, taken in 1867, lists a total of 134 children of school age, 67 boys and 67 girls. The Centerville Assessment Roll of 1856 lists the following settlers living or owning land in the district: F. Benkard, John Schneider, Charles Bogenschitz, T. Ahrens, and Joe Schneider. The first school officers were C. Yannick, C. Meyer, and T. Kiefer. Treasury records show that in 1857 the clerk received 25 cents to attend a meeting and 13 cents to post notices of the annual meeting. Some district settlers who served terms as school officers were Frank Nennick as treasurer for 25 years, Frank Ahrens as clerk for 24 years, William Ahrens as clerk for 21 years, and C. Tapel as treasurer for 21 years. Records for 1946 list Joe Hansen, Victor Hines, John Deasing, Carl Umstead, Henry Mathias, and Herb Schwer as school board members. From 1951 to 1961, Kenneth Schnell and Herb Lorfeld also served. When District Number 4 was attached to the Sheboygan School District, July 1st, 1962, Center School remained open as a kindergarten for Cleveland area children until the new Cleveland Elementary School opened in December 1968. The school building was put out on bids and purchased by Cleveland Auto Sales. The building still stands and is being used as a family dwelling. The end. I have a comment about one thing,
Yes.
I should have put my finger on it, huh?
This gentleman has a bit of information to add to that, what he read.
Yeah, not about Central School in particular, but the rural school districts all over. They were all set up, when they set up the school districts, when Wisconsin became a state, maybe even before that, but at least by then, in 1848, that no child should be more than 2 miles from a school. And I think a lot of people didn't realize that. But that was the plan.
No more than 2 miles.
That no child should have more than 2 miles to a school.
Okay.
The whole state of Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
You'll find schools that are closer, well, sometimes they're close together, as on the Point River School that Althea Norfolk taught at, and Maple Leaf School 1 mile away. Well, what developed was strong feelings about people's distance to school and sometimes disagreements with neighborhoods. And so there are more schools than that.
Okay.
But that was the original, I don't know if they call it a charter or what. I thought it might be interesting since they mentioned the size of this district in particular.
Sure. Thank you very much. We got a lady here who'd like to give us a little recap of things.
Cathy Sixel, and I would like to thank Althea for the wonderful report she gave. And it was a wonderful evening, and Jerry and Charlie and Marie and Cathy for doing the wonderful little clip we had. They certainly spent a lot of time on that. And we are not going to have him, and we also spoke about Center School and Frederick for doing all the reading. We have one other little reading he can read for us yet. Yeah, that was very good.
Okay.
And we will not meet in December. We'll have a little break. And
Okay.
get caught up.
Okay.
And I want to thank you all for coming. Very good, very nice.
We kind of have, whether we haven't did January. Yeah.
Final thing to bring out in the meeting, and I'll let this gentleman identify himself.
I'm Fred Jacoby, and I've been asked to read this about an incident with a teacher, anyway, Albert Kilsmeyer, and a former student and his father. There was a problem, as you'll see.
And how long ago did this happen?
Well, yeah, it was 1900.
1900.
It hit the court in August of 1900, so the incident apparently happened sometime before that.
Okay.
The heading is,
Okay.
Whipped a Teacher. A Newton youth who is very handy with his fists is a subheadline. And then this is the news article of the incident, apparently. Albert Kilsmeyer called on Judge Crate, I think, with a badly battered face and eye. He is a school teacher in the town of Eaton. It appears that some 4 years ago he had trouble with Oscar Rodewald, then a pupil in his school. The parents took up the trouble and have been the enemy of the teacher ever since. Kilsmeyer had been attending the institute and Thursday night went to the town of Newton. While visiting with a friend, he was called out of the house when he was assailed by Rodewald while the young man's father stood by and watched the fight. A warrant has been issued. All right, then it gets to the court, and the heading is, was an expensive assault. And the subheading is, a town of Newton boy is fined $75 in costs. This morning, the case of the state of Wisconsin versus Oscar Rodewald on the charge of assault was heard before Judge Crate. And boy, this is a good name. Attorney Schlupek or something like that appeared for the defense and asked for a jury trial. When the panel was brought into court, all but one were sick and were excused. I think that's a stitch. And a jury was dispensed with. The complainant, Albert Kilsmeyer, is a school teacher. He taught school in Newton, and the defendant was one of his pupils. Some 4 years ago, the complainant gave the defendant a whipping in school, and he swore to have revenge. The old feud was kept up and referred to wherever they met. Last week, the complainant was at a barn raising in the town of Newton, where the defendant was. He was called out of a house without warning, was struck by young Rodewald. The force of the blow, breaking the ridge bone below the eye, which will disfigure him for life. The attorney for the defendant put the defendant on the stand and asked me a few questions when he remarked, "Judge, we throw up the sponge, find the defendant." His testimony was prima facie evidence of his guilt. The judge fined him $75 and costs amounting to $117.52, which will be paid. Kilsmeyer will commence a civil suit for damages against young Rodewald and his father.
Very good. The reading by Mr. Jacoby. We have a lady who would like to say a few words.
I'm Althea Norfolk. That barn raising was my father and mother's barn, Fred and Zilla Rodewald Stockmeyer.
Okay.
And they often spoke of that because Albert Kilsmeyer used to taunt Oscar and say, "Oh, are you ready now? Are you ready now?" And on that day, he was ready. Yes, so it was my parents' barn raising.
No kidding.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
What a coincidence. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Where were you located?
Well, remember the old 17? Yeah. Remember, you know where Carl lived? Carl.
Stockmeyer?
Okay, our farm was the one to the north.
Oh, we're dumb.
Well, yes. Jerry Yost, that's where my grandparents were born, or lived. Grandpa and Grandma Rodewald. And my parents were to the south. No, that was
the one.
Your barn, Sandy gave you that barn.
Oh, yes. He was a good builder.
Thank you very much, Althea.
And of course, Oscar was a cousin of my mother's.
Okay, very good.
Mother was a Rodewald. Oscar's father was Theodore.
Sixel, and I want to thank everyone.
Thank you, very good. And
Charlie Bauer.
Charlie Bauer?
Dorothy Anderson, a very interesting evening.
Yes, thank you, yes.
Edith Wiltsey, yes, I enjoyed the tape very much.
Very good, thank you.
Marie Pippert, it's about bedtime.
It's your bedtime. Marie, I know you were the star of the clip. You did a good job. Thank you.
Althea Norfolk.
Thanks again, Althea.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it very much.
Willard Matthias.
Thank you, Willard. Appreciate all your efforts, too.
Alice Matthias, I think, Althea's got a tremendous memory.
Yes, isn't it wonderful? Great, thank you.
Irene Dine.
Thank you, Irene.
Melvin Yeaney.
Melvin, thank you very much.
Lawrence Chris.
Thank you, Florence.
Walter Chris.
Walter, thank you again.
Fred Jacoby.
Thank you very much, Fred, for the reading there.
Dave Cole, enjoyed the evening very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, folks. Very good.